Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. And this is the meeting of the Tennessee Board of Accountancy. This regularly scheduled meeting is taking place via WebEx, and the link to attend the meeting is available on the board's website. The meeting time, date, and location have been properly noticed, and copies of the agenda were posted to the Board of Accountancy website on April 27th, 2021. At this time, I'll ask Karen to perform a roll call to confirm a quorum, and then we'll proceed, Maria, following that with the statement of necessity.
Andy Bonner.
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis.
Here.
Pamela Church.
Here.
Stephen Eldridge.
Here.
Larry Elmore.
Here.
Greg Gilbert.
Here.
John Griesbeck.
Here.
Kevin Monroe.
Here.
Gay Moon.
Here.
Todd Skelton.
Here.
Okay, it appears that we have a quorum. Thank you, Karen. At this time, Maria, I'll ask you to read the statement of necessity, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy, which is taking place via teleconference on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Notice of this meeting was posted to the board's website on April 27th, 2021. Because there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to Cpa 844-108b2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. Further, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body. That physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to conduct a quarterly scheduled meeting of the board as well as a rulemaking hearing. This meeting was scheduled during the time period covered by the governor's executive order that allowed for virtual meetings of the board. To change today's meeting to in-person between the expiration and the scheduled time was impractical due to the logistical requirements of securing travel arrangements and hotel accommodations. Furthermore, the necessity of the execution of this meeting is due to the need to timely process consumer complaints to ensure the efficient resolution of matters, as well as address regularly scheduled matters of the board. All voting will be conducted by roll call.
All right, thank you, Maria. And just on that note, as was mentioned yesterday, but for those who may be tuning in or watching a replay of this meeting, both Wendy and I, were aware of the scheduled April 30th expiration of the governor's executive order. And at the time that we had to schedule and public notice this meeting, we did not know the final disposition of what would come after that order, whether it would be allowed to expire, be extended, or be modified. And so we consulted with Assistant Commissioner Martin several weeks in advance of this scheduled meeting, and we were among the very first of the board meetings, meeting on, in fact, the first business day or two after the April 30th date to meet. And we ultimately concluded that it would be best to go ahead and proceed with this meeting via WebEx. Our hope is to meet in person in our July meeting, depending on circumstances and board members' willingness and ability to meet in person. But that is our hope, and that's what we'll be working toward to do safely. So I appreciate the perseverance of the board staff, and also appreciate the cooperation of the Commissioner's Office and its staff, and most especially the board members. It's now been over a year since we've been able to meet in person, and that being able to meet in person is missed. I want to see more pictures of Larry's and others' grandchildren here at our next meeting, and I know that we'll have plenty to share. So I'm looking forward to that very much. And that, in a nutshell, is why we're meeting remotely today. With respect to announcements, I have a few. In terms of meeting logistics, again, if you're not speaking, I would just ask that you would go ahead and mute your microphone to prevent any background noise from interfering with the meeting. If there are a lot of folks who want to chime in and chat, just kind of use the chat function and notify me, and then I'll just call you in the order that I see you pop up. If there's not too much traffic and we're not talking over one another, then we may not need to really go down that route. This call is open to the public and will be available for replay in a day or two if the technology goes on schedule. There will be two opportunities for public input. One will be during the rulemaking hearing that we will have here in the early part of the agenda, and another at the end of the agenda. And at this time, I would just like to extend a welcome to any visitors from the public who are actually tuning in live, and appreciate your attendance. And as I mentioned, you'll have two opportunities to comment or speak if you so desire. At this point, I think there's one other thing I would like to do from an announcement standpoint, and that is to formally welcome Kara Fitzgerald in her official CEO role for the Tennessee Society of CPAs, and also to welcome Jim Lehman in his new role as COO of the Tennessee Society of CPAs. And so we are glad to have both of you here, and Kara and or Jim, if either of you would like to make a comment, you are welcome to, but we appreciate the longstanding and cooperative relationship that the board has with the Tennessee Society, and appreciate your leadership, and congratulate both of you in your new official roles.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the kind words and certainly echo your sentiment. We have a great relationship with the State Board of Accountancy, and we look forward to continuing that and working with Wendy and her staff and all of you. So anything that we can do to support your efforts, we're here to do it. So thank you again, and just call on us whenever you need us.
Appreciate that. And Jim, welcome on board.
Thank you so much. I'll just echo what Kara said. Look forward to the relationship with this board, and see a couple familiar faces on here. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Jim, and thank you all for joining the meeting here. With that, I think the next item is to review and adopt the agenda. This has been public noticed. Is there a motion to review and, is there a motion to approve the agenda? And then we'll have a second and any discussion.
So moved.
So moved, thank you. Second, and who was the second? I didn't catch that.
Andy.
Andy, thank you. Is there any discussion with respect to the agenda? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll on the motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
Yes, sir. Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Mary Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes, and we will proceed to the rulemaking hearing. And for that, I'll turn it over to Wendy for an introduction. I would note that this is a little bit of a different procedure with respect to rulemaking that we may have done in the past, but there are reasons for that. And Wendy, I'll turn it over to you to introduce that and why we are going through a formal rulemaking hearing with respect to what we have before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, what we're going to do, I think, we do not have a court reporter with us yet, and we need her to be here in order to proceed. So I think what we'll do is she has been contacted and had some issues with the storms this morning. So she is getting with us soon. So, but what we'll do is just go ahead with the agenda until we see her join us, and then we'll move forward with the rulemaking.
That sounds fine, Wendy. Thank you,
Okay.
and hopefully things are going well for our court reporter here. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of January 26th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second, thank you. Is there any discussion or comment with respect to the draft minutes? If not, Karen, will you call the roll on the motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of January 26, 2021?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
thank you, Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report, and we'll have one action item coming out of that to approve a calendar date for our meeting schedule in 2022. And Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, so you all received my executive director's report last week. And as is normally the case, we have some future meeting dates there at the start of the report. And I've added a proposed date that we will want to vote on at the end. So check your calendars while I'm going through here and see if that works for y'all. The next item there is Nasba Meetings. We did have Nasba's Executive Director and Legal Conference in April. Sherry, Maria, and I attended this event. And there were a variety of presentations, everything from CPA evolution to succession planning to cybersecurity, investigations, some information on substantial equivalency. So it was a really well done conference. And we actually had executive director or CEOs from state societies attend with us as well. So I think a lot of the sessions were really informative for those that were involved. The upcoming meetings for NASBA's regional meeting has been, the Western and Eastern has been combined. And so it will be virtual on June 22nd and 23rd. So you can mark your calendars for that. Anyone will be able to attend. To my understanding, there's no charge for that. So if you want to block your calendars for that, that would be great. And I understand, John, you also received some information on a new member orientation. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I'm registered.
Okay, awesome. So he will be attending that here in the early part of June, I believe. And then NASBA's annual meeting, it's my understanding, at least for now, the expectation is that will be live in San Diego. So exciting news there. And so we'll talk in July a little bit about attendance at that meeting and who wants to attend with us. CPA exam. So the AI CPA Board of Examiners had an update just a week or two ago. And so I added that information here for you. The exam is kind of hot topic right now, partly because we just went through a practice analysis. So there's a new practice analysis out there. Of course, we had COVID, which shut down prometric test centers, and still in some parts of the country there are issues, but in Tennessee we've been fine and they're open at full capacity. And of course, we had continuous testing that started July 1st of last year, and you'll note there in the second bullet point that pass rates for those that are undergoing testing in the continuous testing format are comparable to normal pass rates, and so they are pleased with the performance of continuous testing and how that's working for everyone. So hopefully that gives candidates more of an opportunity to sit if they are unable to pass the section. 154,318 sections delivered in 2020 versus 187,968 sections delivered in 2019. So that's down 18%, which was due largely in part to COVID and the shutdown of testing centers for a month or more in certain locations. Numbers have really not recovered since the 2017 change in the exam. Typically, numbers do go down during an exam change, but they have not recovered, and COVID just added to that. So it's continued the problem that we've had and puts downward pressure on the pipeline. And so there are concerns at both NASBA and AICPA regarding this. And so we continue to look at the pipeline and things that we can do there to ensure that folks are encouraged and have ample opportunity to sit for the exam. 32,963 sections delivered in the first quarter of this year. There were 37,489 budgeted, so they were behind in the first quarter of this year as well. So there is a group called NAP, which stands for NASBA AICPA Prometric, and they are continuing to develop the concept of remote testing and that capability. And that pilot process, I believe they're still gearing up for it, and the plan now is for it to occur in June. But of course, if everything's not quite in place, they will not execute that in June as planned. So they want everything to be where it needs to be in order to do that testing of the remote test, or the remote testing pilot, I guess is the right way to say it. So I included the attachment for the update provided by the Board of Examiners. It goes into some more detail about CPA evolution, and there really hasn't been a lot finalized. They are digging in deep on those 3 additional sections that folks will have an opportunity to take, and what the content will be in those sections as it relates to the core. And so there's a lot of work being done there, and they are working on maybe a draft blueprint that they're hoping later this summer to have available simply for folks to take a look at. Exam results are in your second attachment, which I typically provide in this document if they're available to us. And then the last thing related to the exam is a fee change letter. We've received 2 letters since our last meeting. So it just shows the approved fees for the upcoming year for 21-22, and then how those would be implemented. And so you can see that in the attachments. There really isn't a lot of new information there. We had been previously advised of these fee increases. Okay, and outreach. We have been lucky enough to have a decent amount of outreach since our last meeting. Of course, most of it has been done virtually. Sherry was able to do a presentation for a Belmont MAC class on ethics, and she used a lot of our case studies as examples when walking through code of conduct and case study issues that we face at the board and that CPAs need to be aware of. I did a quick update for TSCPA and their various chapters, so we did that in early February. We also teamed up with TSCPA doing a CPA 101 with students across the state to give them information on the requirements for licensure, as well as exam information, and then how to apply for a license and what the process is once you get to that point. We did a press release really geared towards consumers in the middle of March related to tax season, and kind of encourage them, if they're using a CPA, to make sure that their license is up to date and those types of things, as well as some basic tax information for the consumer. The end of March, we did a quick notification. Hopefully most of you got that, on some phishing scams that were going on with other state boards, where they were spoofing the board's email address, and licensees were receiving information and encouraged to click on some links. And we just, out of an abundance of caution, sent something out to everyone just to kind of make sure they were in tune to those kind of things in case it happened with us as well. And then I got a chance to meet Jim at lunch in April along with Kara, so we had a nice visit to talk about activities at both of our organizations. So a good amount of outreach. CPE audit, we are planning to start the audit send out those notices on May 17th. We decided to wait until the end of the tax deadline before we sent those notices out. So they'll have those who are selected for audit will have a reply date by the end of July to get that information into us. And then the rest of the report is mainly statistics on where we are with renewals and licenses. As you know, on January 31st, licenses in expired grace status will receive a $100 late fee, and we eventually got notices out to everybody on that. And your renewal statistics are there below. We are, as far as individuals, a little bit ahead of last year, so we are on track. With individuals, we are a little bit behind with firms, but not too far off of the norm. Performance metrics, these are the things that these are related to the goals in the department, which relate to licensing time, encouraging us to make sure that we get licenses out as quickly as possible once we have the information. And you will see there that we're doing pretty well in that category. In February of this year, we were at 8.8 days, and March we were at 5.3 days. And this includes those applications that come in and are missing a piece of information, and we still have to get that information. So, so we're doing well there. Case and complaint, we have been over the past several months we are encouraged, or our goal is to resolve 90% of these complaints within 180 days of receiving them. And so we have met that mark in February and March of this year at 100%. And then new licenses issued here are below. We had a rockin' first quarter, guys. We had 184 licenses issued, which is, I went back to 18 as well, so it beats the past 3 years as far as number of licenses issued. So don't know exactly what that's attributed to, but it's good news for sure. And 22 firm permits issued. And then the end there is your full licensing population by status. And that is it. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy? Wendy, not a question, just a comment, and that is to thank you and Karen and Sharon who are on the call today, but also other members of the staff who are not on the call for the tremendous flexibility and resilience that you and the staff have shown during this past year in the pandemic, where a lot of things have had to change on the fly and a lot of movement has had to be made. And Rhea also would add you, as well as the other members of council and other members of the Commerce Department that we work with, just appreciate from a staff perspective all of the work and sacrifices that you have made.
Thank you. I will make sure they hear that.
Great, thank you. At this point, do we have our court reporter present with us?
We
Yes, sir.
do.
It looks like we do. Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Jones.
Sorry for my tardiness on that.
Well, we're just glad you're safe and sound here with all the weather that went through.
I think we had a tornado come through this morning where I live.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I live north side of Gallatin, so it got
Okay.
serious here this morning.
Well, we're just glad to see you and safe.
you.
So with respect to that, we will go back to our agenda, to the rulemaking hearing. And excuse me, Wendy, I'll just ask you to introduce that topic, and also if you could touch on why we are going through a hearing process, which may be different from what we have done before.
Okay, I'll quickly do this and then let Maria get into her part of the process. But historically, what we've done when this board has approved a rule change is we have gone through a process by which the state has called proposed rules. And in that fashion, we go through all of the checks and balances as far as going through Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office. And we go in front of the Government Ops Committee as well. But there have been some concerns in the past year or so that we weren't giving ample opportunity for public comment. And although individuals were able to give public comment, there wasn't a live or open forum and to do that in the proposed rules method. So members of the legislature very much encouraged us to go through the rulemaking hearing process in order to make sure that we afforded that opportunity to the public in an open forum with a chance to ask questions and clarify any concerns that they might have. So this is that opportunity in a rulemaking hearing format, and hopefully I conveyed that correctly, Maria. I will turn it over to you to further explain.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Part of our rulemaking process is centered, on notice and comment. And so public notice and the opportunity for comment. And so this is just, like Wendy said, more opportunity for the public to be able to do that and give feedback on our rule changes. And that way, when we do go present before the Government Operations Committee, it just makes for a more seamless process and shows that we have done what we're supposed to do statutorily to get these rules passed. So with that, I will say the rulemaking hearing, it's very formulaic and it's off of certain things I have to say and read into the record out of the statute. So I appreciate your patience with me as I kind of go through what we have to do. And that our court reporter is here to kind of get all this down on the record. And so I will get started. There are several portions of this hearing that I will need a roll call vote. So if you all want to reference the material that we sent in advance, the red line copy of the rule, as well as some of those attachments. So before we get started, are there any questions?
Do we want to make sure everyone has? Do we want to make sure everybody has that in front of them and nobody missed that email? Does everyone feel comfortable they have the rulemaking documents in front of them? Okay, great.
Great, thank you. I know we already called roll, but just for the record, I'll have to do that again. So if you hear me being redundant, that's intentional. All right, are we ready, Beverly? Do you need anything before we get started? Okay, great. Yes. This rulemaking hearing is called to order. My name is Maria Bush. I serve as an Associate General Counsel in the Department of Commerce and Insurance, Division of Regulatory Boards, and I represent the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy. At this time, Wendy, would you please call the roll and introduce yourself for the record?
My name is Wendy Garvin, Executive Director of the Board of Accountancy, and I'll call the roll. Andy Bonner.
Present.
Janet Booker Davis.
Present.
Pam Church.
Present.
Stephen Eldridge.
Here.
Larry Elmore.
Here.
Greg Gilbert. I don't think we heard you, Greg.
Present.
Thank you. John Griesbeck.
Present.
Kevin Monroe.
Present.
Gay Moon.
Present.
And Todd Skelton.
Present.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. Today is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. This rulemaking hearing is taking place pursuant to TCA Section 45204 via WebEx. The purpose of this rulemaking hearing is to solicit comments on proposed rules. This rule amendment adds language to the continuing education portion of the board's rules. Presently, completion of a board-approved state-specific ethics course is required for certified public accountant license holders seeking regular biennial renewal. However, there are instances in which a license holder may renew their license and the rule does not specifically state the board-approved state-specific ethics course as a requirement. Such instances include license reactivation, reinstatement, and licensees in their first renewal cycle. This rule amendment will add language requiring 2 hours of a board-approved state-specific ethics course to the sections of the rule that outline requirements for license reactivation, reinstatement, and licensees in their first renewal cycle. The addition of the ethics course requirement will not increase the overall required continuing education hours and may be counted toward the existing overall total required by the rules. A rule is defined as an agency statement of general applicability that implements or prescribes law or policy or describes the procedures or practice requirements of the agency. Proposed rules are filed, excuse me. Proposed rules are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State. Notice is given to the public for comment, and a rulemaking hearing is held. Upon conclusion of the hearing and adoption of the proposed rules, the rules are forwarded to the Attorney General's office for review of legality. If approved, they are filed with the Secretary of State, which is responsible for publication, and the Government Operations Committee of the General Assembly. The rules must stay in the Secretary of State's office for 90 days, the end of which time will be the effective date. Those members of the public wishing to speak should use the comments bubble to inform our meeting coordinator, who will call names one at a time. Only those who have informed the meeting coordinator that they wish to speak will be permitted to do so. Comments will be accepted from persons who have signed up via the chat function or who have emailed their name in advance. Because this electronic meeting is not the usual method for the rulemaking hearing, at the end we will ask if anyone else from the public wishes to speak. That will be the last opportunity for the meeting coordinator to unmute you so you can ask a question or provide a comment. The notice of rulemaking hearing included the entire text of the proposed rules and was published on the Tennessee Administrative Register website on March 1st, 2021. As the agency hears public comment on the proposed rules, I reserve the right to limit such comments if they become repetitive. Please limit your comments accordingly. I will now summarize the substance of the proposed rules into the record. This is rules of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy, Chapter 0020-05-.03, Continuing Education. One, it says it's going to amend 2, and it will read, a license holder seeking to renew an initial certificate issued less than 2 years but more than 1 year prior to expiration must provide evidence of having completed at least 40 hours of continuing education, of which 20 hours shall be in technical fields of study. And this is the new language that will be added. Of the 40 hours required, at least 2 hours shall consist of a board-approved state-specific ethics course designed to familiarize the licensee with accountancy law and rules, as well as professional ethics. And further down in that rule, in 3F, will read, certificate holders who are granted inactive status must complete 80 hours of CPE in technical fields of study during the 24-month period preceding the date of their request for reactivation of their license. Of the 80 hours required, at least 2 hours shall consist of a board-approved state-specific ethics course designed to familiarize the licensee with accountancy law and rules, as well as professional ethics. And then in 6 of the same portion of the rule, it will state the language that I just mentioned. So, this was sent out to all those wishing to receive notifications from the board regarding changes to our law and rules. The no comments were received via email prior to this hearing. Indeed, were any written comments received by the board office regarding these rules?
We are unaware of any comments received.
Thank you. So now at this time, I'll ask if there are any public comments from those present at today's meeting. These are, I just want to note that these are not controversial rule changes, so it is common that there wouldn't be any public comment for this type of rule change. So I'll just give it a couple more seconds to see if we have anyone who would like to comment on this from the public. Okay. At this time, I will need a motion and roll call vote as required by TCA 45222 to adopt the hearing rule language that I just stated. It's the red line copy that you all have. So at this time, I will need a motion and roll call for the rule language.
Make a motion.
Second.
Please identify who made those. I didn't get the names. They didn't pop up.
Motion, Andy Bonner.
Second, Larry Elmore.
Great, thank you. Can we now get a roll call vote?
I'll go ahead and do that. Andy
Thank
Bonner,
you, Wendy.
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton.
Aye.
Thank you, Wendy. And finally, I will leave this open if you all have any questions regarding the regulatory flexibility addendum that was sent out, as well as the economic impact statement. And additionally, there is information required by the Joint Government Operations Committee. Those are A through E. Those are sent out in advance. So I will need a motion and roll call to adopt those as well.
I'll make a motion. This is Andy Bonner.
I'll second it. Stephen Eldridge.
Thank you. Wendy, would you mind doing a roll call vote for that?
Okay. Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore, Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton.
Aye.
Thank you, Wendy. So that concludes this rulemaking hearing. Thank you all for your patience and for being here today. Following this hearing, the rules will be held for additional comments. And then at that point, I will put them on a rulemaking filing form and submit to the Attorney General's office for review and approval. And then once the Attorney General's signature is obtained, these are filed with the Secretary of State and generally become effective 90 days from the date of filing, and that's pending approval from the General Assembly, the Joint Government Operations Committee. So that's kind of the timeline for that. But at this point, we are done with the rulemaking hearing, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you, Beverly. That concludes the portion that we needed. So appreciate it. Thanks.
So much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I hope everyone is safe in your neighborhood here.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you. All have a great day.
Thank you. You too. And Maria and Wendy, thank you for shepherding us through the process here and providing the appropriate information in a timely manner with respect to the rulemaking hearing. This was actually one of the comments. It was the only kind of, I would describe as constructive criticism comment that came out of our sunset hearing roughly, a year and a half or so ago before the Joint Government Operations Committee. It was definitely an expressed preference to proceed through the rulemaking hearing process versus the proposed rulemaking process that Wendy and Maria had outlined. So I think we're certainly moving in accordance with the Joint Operation Committee's appropriate wishes. With respect to that, I think, Wendy, you've concluded your executive director's report. Is that right? We'll go ahead and begin with the board committee reports.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we do need a vote on that meeting date.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for reminding me, Wendy. Yes, we have a new proposed board meeting date of Tuesday, July 26th, 2022, which is the board meeting date. And then we would typically schedule a committee meeting the day before, that afternoon before. Is there a motion to approve that date? And then we'll get a second and open it up for discussion.
I make a motion to approve that date.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Any further discussion about that those dates? If none, Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. And Wendy, thank you for reminding me. I got so caught up in our exciting rulemaking hearing here that I had made a note to myself and I completely overlooked it. So thank you for reminding me on that. Now we'll proceed to the board committee reports. And as we introduce this topic, the board meets in its organized committees, typically the day before the board meeting, which is also a public meeting, and basically reviews the issues that ultimately committees may recommend to the board for action today. And so we'll begin with the licensing committee, which is chaired by Gay Moon. And Gay, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through the recommendations that your committee made yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had 3 items on our agenda yesterday, the first of which was a look at the Certified Data Privacy Security Engineer exam to be taken as credit for CPE. We had a discussion which the full board was a part of, and the committee voted to recommend to the full board to approve this exam for CPE credit. So I guess, is this a motion or?
We can entertain a motion to accept the committee's recommendation to approve this exam for full CPE credit. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Stephen Eldridge.
We have a second. Is there any further comment or discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda was to review an accounting ethics course, Management 59,000 at the Purdue University. We looked at the content and the resources that were used in this, and so our committee voted to recommend that the board approve this course as an upper division accounting course.
Okay, thank you, Gay. Is there a motion for that approval?
So moved, Stephen Eldridge.
Moved by Stephen, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Not sure who seconded first here. Was that Gay, you?
I did second it, yes.
All right, we'll go with Gay as the second on that one. Is there any further discussion or comment on the motion to approve? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. And Gay, I'll turn it back over to you here for your next action item.
Okay. The last item on our agenda was looking at the World Education Services. This is a company that reviews international colleges and universities to see if they're equivalent to our U.S. colleges and universities. There had been some concerns specifically with India, their 3-year program. And so we discussed this, and the committee voted to recommend that the board withdraw the approval of WES reports effective August 1, 2021.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Stephen?
Thank you, Stephen. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Andy, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion or comment on this one? I think the only comment I would add is for the discussion of your committee yesterday, Gay. It was noted based on the polling that Wendy had done with other state boards of accountancy, is that of those who responded to that poll, a vast majority do not recognize this service for the purpose of accrediting international education programs. And so if this motion passes, this effectively puts us safely in the with the majority of currently practicing boards of accountancy on that issue. Karen, will you please go ahead and call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. And Wendy, were there any other action items from your committee that need to come before the board today?
You mean Gay?
I'm sorry, Gay. Yes.
No, that concludes our agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay. And thanks also to the members of that committee with respect to licensing. The next committee report outs are from the Enforcement Committee, which is chaired by Andy Bonner. Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met yesterday. We went through really 7 current legal items on the report. After we got through with them, we asked that one of them, which was consent order number 2, be changed in the reading of it. And we were all sent out new reports yesterday that had that change in there. There was a kind of a red line there that kind of changed that out. And so what I'd like to do is go through and just go through cases 1 through 5 real quick. And under the consent order, all of those are dealing with either somebody holding out as a licensee that was not, or acts discreditable that were actually brought forward to this in renewal to indicate that that there was some kind of issue, and then we would issue a letter to them, or and then also one that dealt with an item that we do not have any legal pursuit over from our orders and rules. But cases 1 through 5, just all at once, that they all be closed with either a letter of instruction or a letter of warning, and present that from the committee from yesterday. You want me to go
It'd be
through each
helpful if
case
I would unmute
real
myself.
quick?
Yeah, so is there a motion to accept the committee's recommendation on cases 1 through 5 in the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Larry, and was the second from Greg?
Second. Second.
Thank you, Greg. Is there any further discussion or comment on the recommendations for those first 5 cases? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll on that motion with respect to recommendations on cases 1 through 5 in the consent agenda?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, and Andy, turn it back over to you.
Okay, this on cases 6 and 7, I'll actually go through each one of those. The first one is case 6. It deals with the unlicensed activity. A review report was issued without proper licensure and no mitigating circumstances. So since there were no mitigating circumstances, we're asking for a $1,000 civil penalty. To issue a consent order with that penalty. We're also going to refer other violations that were found to the respondent's home state of Georgia, to the Georgia Board of Accountancy for use of the CPA designation and offering a compilation services to the public. On case 7, we also have an unlicensed activity. In this case, it was mitigating circumstances. Respondent's client was provided incorrect guidance from customer service regarding licensure requirements. As we discussed yesterday, we could not document that was. But there seems to be just a difference in the license, the way in that respondent's home state versus what they can do in Tennessee, and so we're in this particular case we asked for a consent order and a civil penalty of $750 associated with it. And that's the only other 2 cases we have. We offer that up for an approval.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So the motion is to accept the committee's recommendations for board approval with respect to cases numbers 6 and 7 relating to review reports being issued without a proper licensure. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Janet Booker Davis. Thank you. Is there any further discussion or comment on either of these 2 recommended disciplinary actions? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
John Griesbeck,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Thank you, Karen. That motion also passes unanimously. And Andy, are there any further items out from your enforcement committee? Okay, just reading lips. I think you may have been muted, Andy, but it looked like there were none.
No, they're not. I'm sorry.
Okay, sounds good. All right, the next committee report is in Rule Committee, which also met yesterday afternoon, and that is chaired by Larry Elmore. And Larry, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee met yesterday to discuss the draft rule language related to Chapter 0020-02 in the accountancy rules and laws. These revisions were being suggested to update the outdated accreditation information and incorporate model rule language in support of the CPA Evolution project. The committee had a very good discussion, and also several board members that were not on the committee discussed this. It was open to any full discussion. And after discussion, there were a lot of, not a lot, but some suggestions related to wording in some of the cases related to approved courses and what was approved and what was not approved, specific to certain colleges, junior college versus otherwise. So after the discussion, the committee suggested that Maria take the document back and make some changes in the wording in several cases and come back for another discussion at the next meeting. So,
Larry,
and Maria graciously agreed to do that.
thank you, Maria. Any further comment or discussion? Not really any action to be taken by the board today relative to that, but any other board member comment or discussion on that issue? Larry, any other items from your committee?
That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Larry. The next committee that met yesterday is the executive committee, which is comprised of the officers of the board. And here yesterday during the committee meetings, the primary focus was on the interim financial reporting information that we have for the Board of Accountancy activities. Wendy summarized several reports that were in the read ahead relative to our year-to-date financial information. I believe we had year-to-date information essentially through February of 2021 in our current fiscal year. Both revenues are slightly below budget expectations, at least through February, although that may bounce back in March due to some IT issues in getting late notices out. But also our expenses are operating under budget, principally due to, among other things, pandemic-related lack of travel and those types of things, and meeting virtually instead of in person. Wendy, are there any other highlights relative to the financial reports from yesterday that you'd like to call out in particular?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the only item that I'll note that was brought up yesterday was since we do appear to have excess money this year, I know we've had that in previous years, but maybe look for ways that we could utilize that before the end of the fiscal year if possible, to use those funds towards this board rather than them going into reserve. So we'll look at that if there's anything that comes to mind, including potentially computers or IT related items.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Any other board member comments or questions concerning the executive committee's report out from yesterday's committee meetings? Okay, if not, that takes care of our committee reports. I think the pace of our meeting is such that we're likely going to be done in the not too distant future. So my inclination is not to suggest a break at this time, but I want to pause here and make sure that everyone's comfortable with that, with proceeding on with respect to the meeting. Are folks comfortable just moving forward with the few remaining agenda items that we have? I'm seeing most nod. If you do need to step out, please mute your video and audio coverage here. And we'll go right on into our Nasba update. And for the first update, we'll turn it over to Andy Bonner, who is our Southeast Regional Representative on the Nasba board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On April the 23rd, Naspa had its annual or its regular quarterly board meeting. We met virtually. We got an update from Carlos Barrera, our chair, and he indicated all the meetings he's been to virtually and how he may have a little virtual hangover from all the meetings. And as you know, all meetings, especially wherever you are, virtual meetings are very challenging, especially when you get interruptions and everything. But he gave a great update on, the main focus, which was CPA evolution and the model curriculum. And he also mentioned what Wendy had said about the legal and executive directors conference that they had just had. And Kent Absek had done a fantastic job with that, putting it all together. In fact, he went on to recognize Kent, and Kent went through and talked about how they were putting mentor programs into place, whether you can be a mentor or you can have somebody working with you, that the activity that they were doing on the monthly coffee with Kent breaks, and that the actually involvement, it was astonishing, the involvement from all the executive directors across in the legal, I think 49 different jurisdictions were represented. So it was quite impressive. And in fact, when they talked about involvement and getting information from executive directors, our own Wendy was brought up as being one of the ones that just had so much great feedback and conversation. And, you know, so Wendy and her staff just doing a fantastic job. And we as our Tennessee board is being recognized at these meetings as people who have a very active staff and involved. And so we're just really blessed to have them working with us. So that was good. One of the things that Wendy kind of touched on, we got to see, it was a CP evolution and the core, and how they kind of changed that emblem to where in the middle it says core, and then it says accounting, audit, and tax, and then technology is kind of tied into all three of those. And then you have the outer kind of additional sections, which is tax compliance and planning, business analysis and reporting, and then the information systems and controls. So they tweaked that symbol a little bit to be more informative as when you see it. So that was a lot. That was very interesting to me, and really expect a lot of information this summer on the exam process and updates. You know, so we've got some really big remote kind of sessions that are going to take place virtually that will allow us as board members to participate in that. As Wendy indicated, also the remote testing, more states have signed on to that pilot program that we approved that would be conducted this summer. It looks like there's 14 jurisdictions who are in the process of getting that approved. And as soon as that happens, then we should be able to have the remote testing this summer, and then the results from this pilot program in the fall. So they kind of gave us that. One of the things that was kind of, don't say anything, but it was actually issued on Friday, April the 30th, is the big reveal. So everybody on the board should have gotten something from Naspa that talks about signing up for the 15th and 16th of June. And really what they did was they came over and said, you know, education discussion on the model curriculum. Academia is really got a lot to change in that area. So instead of saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing, what they NASPA and came up with was kind of and the AICPA is kind of a model that says, hey, here's a good model to look at and to ask questions about. You know, it would better reflect the changing skills that are going to be tested on the exam. And they're expecting over 1,000 people to sign up for this. Every board member and is being sent an invitation to this. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. I think it'll be very informative and give you an idea of where everything's going. In July, the AICPA and NASPA will have a summit meeting. Of course, they've started this and they meet twice a year. And this time, CP evolution and also the big reveal results from June will be discussed and kind of brought back. And so there's a lot of things happening, and they're bringing this together. You know, the exam is going to be updated at some date in the future for the new testing requirements. And so where we had a lag on the exam from 18, as Wendy talked about, they're also expecting the current exam to get more people sitting for it because of the changes that are coming. So we're probably going to start seeing more students trying to go ahead and get that exam out of the way before it changes. Now, when will it change? I've heard several different dates. I don't think they've announced anything yet. I think when we were at one of the annual meetings, that it was probably going to be January of 2014, but that has not been embedded yet. But expect that to be coming out soon, probably in the fall, if not the summer, the fall. They'll try to get that date down and kind of put out so that everybody will have it. We actually got an early announcement of this. Nasba announced a Cpa examination testing going to Saudi Arabia and Israel. And an email blast was sent out on the 3rd. So I can actually say that now, which is exciting. And just give you some kind of idea of the impact of that. I mean, COVID has really changed the way that people can go from one country to another and take the exams. And so this will give people more opportunity due to travel restrictions to sit for the exam. In the financial report, they gave us an update that said international exam sessions had increased by 43.6% from last year. So a lot of individuals are taking the CPA exam internationally, and we're seeing a big boost there. One of the things that they kind of highlighted at the board meeting that was interesting was that we heard about a joint board meeting between North Carolina Board and the North Carolina Society of CPAs. And they have it once a year. They've been doing it for several years, and they indicate that it's very successful, and they get together and they're able to communicate at another level. And, it's interesting. It will be interesting to see what all they do in the meetings there, but that's something that they're going to probably have a focus question on to see if any other state boards do that with their state society. We got an update on the coronavirus impact. And one of the things that we found out was that that we're pretty much going to say virtual until after the end of June 30th. And then we're looking into possibly having our first live board meeting at the end of July. And that's still questionable. Right now, the annual meeting in San Diego is on. We may not be able to do it depending on what happens in California, if they have, a certain number of restrictions as far as meeting inside. So that more will come on that, but I think everybody on the board was kind of ready to get back to live. The virtual world was tough, and we all want to get together and communicate and not have interruptions while you're sitting at work and going through things. And so I know that as Wendy said, John is attending our new board member orientation, but in the past, they've always told us that if you have never attended an orientation, that you're eligible. So if there's any board members who have never attended the new board member orientation, now may be a great time to get on and do it virtually. They really do a great job of telling you about all the committees, about what NASPA does, and the resources that NASPA has, and the things that they can do for each jurisdiction. And so I highly encourage you, if you've never done it before, to consider that. As we mentioned earlier, June the 8th is that day. Also, NASPA, everything right now is NASPA is IT focused. As Wendy said, I think all the states are looking at, or jurisdictions are looking at, IT concerns and trying to upgrade equipment, and really the infrastructure and the networks at NASPA are really getting major updates. And since the pandemic, they've been spending a lot of money in that area. So we're going to see a lot of changes in that, and delivery methods are going to be better. And so that's exciting news. It's always neat when people are really investing back into the IT structure of an entity, and NASPA is no exception. They're really focusing on that. I know Tennessee, we passed the nano and blended learning delivery method, gosh, more than a year ago. There's still 17 jurisdictions that have not adopted that, and then we went through the map and saw that, and that but 4 have already are planning on approving it. So we're going to be down to 13, which is kind of exciting. And if you haven't seen the schedule, the annual meeting will be in San Diego, October 31st through the 3rd of this year. And then they're going to try to go back to for the executive directors and the legal staff. And they're going to try to go back to April 12th through the 14th of 22 to Clearwater Beach, Florida. I think this will be the 3rd time that they tried to do that. So hopefully 3rd time's a charm. And then the Western Regional Meeting will be from in June the 9th or 7th through the 9th in Colorado Springs. And then for the Eastern Regional, ours will be June the 27th to the 29th. And that's a little bit later than normal at White Sulphur Springs. But it will be, that was the only time they could work us in. So it's going to be closer to the end of the month with that one. And so a lot of things happening at NASPA and mostly with the model curriculum. And, you know, we have a lot of people that are participating in committees. And I know that there's some exciting things happening as far as the way that education is changing and the way that the exam's changing. And so it's just, it's an exciting time in the profession. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions or comments for Andy? And just, Andy, appreciate you representing our entire Southeast region, not just our Tennessee jurisdiction, and keeping us abreast of things.
Thank you.
We will go ahead to see if there are any NASBA committee report outs from members who are serving on NASBA committees. And Janet, any reporting here with respect to the nominating committee?
We've had a meeting, an introduction and orientation meeting, the 29th of April. We got that done, and we're going to be interviewing for the vice chair this Friday, May 7th. And then on June 29th, we'll be selecting directors at large and regional directors. So that's what's going on with the nominating committee. And for the Cpa Examination Review Board, which I'm also on, this will, although I'll be rolling off this year, this is my 3rd year on that, we're completing the field work and finalizing the reports, and the reports will be presented at the regional meeting coming up in June. So that's what's going on with the committees that I'm on.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Pam, any information to report out with respect to your committee?
I'm on the CBT, the Computer-Based Testing Committee, and the 2 issues we've dealt with for a while now are the remote testing of the Cpa exam and the transition to this new exam that Andy referred to that will probably start January 2024. And we've only had, the CBT meeting has had committee has had 1 meeting since this board met. Transition Task Force has not had any so far, but we're meeting next week. On the CBT, all I can say is it's on top of what Wendy said, you know, this remote testing has become real. And when we started out early in the pandemic, it was just an emergency measure. Nobody really was sure whether it would work. And based on the discussion of the committee, it's obvious that we are going forward with this. Exactly when and how it will be implemented under what circumstances remains to be seen. However, you know, it's been very interesting to watch it evolve and to see the advancements that are there and that this really could be feasible. So that, you know, that committee certainly has formed consensus on that. And then the Transition Task Force will meet next week in conjunction. Well, it's over, they're still setting the date, the next 2 weeks, but with the Executive Directors Committee and the Standard Setting Committee to look at a draft of the transition policies for going to this new exam. And that's very tricky because not only do we have to look at what does the profession as a whole want as far as are there any circumstances where someone could lose a part because it just doesn't coincide with these new parts, or what part counts for what, but also you're dealing with state law and state rules and so many legal issues that will have to be changed. So there has been more consensus reached among those committee members as well as far as that transition, but we have not seen this draft. Colleen Conrad with Naspa said they are working on finalizing the draft and has asked for dates to meet. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Pam. Any questions for Pam with respect to her report out?
I've got one question. So I guess your committee's kind of sitting back saying that the way virtually we do things is going to change, and so the test has got to evolve itself so that it's more of a take as remotely. Is that what y'all are kind of coming back with, Pam?
Say that again, Andrew. I'm not sure I'm following you.
When we do remote testing, that the way things are evolving is that we're going to see more and more testing centers maybe decide that remote testing is the way to go, so that we may, as a profession, be forced to use remote testing more.
I think that that where we are now is that we're thinking we have seen dire circumstances under which we had to use remote testing. And so the profession needs to be ready on the go to implement that if and when we need to. So it might be a hurricane somewhere. It might be, heaven forbid all of this, but, another pandemic or whatever. So I think that is still the thinking, is that we've got to do this just because we know there are uncertainties and this has been so obvious to us. On the other hand, when we started this, the message was no professions have done this on a normal basis, just ongoing. But we've learned that there are, a few that are trying this, and it seems to be the way of the future. So certainly the committee is not speaking for the profession as far as do we want to do this on a normal basis, but we would have it ready, we as a profession, if it came to that. It certainly looks like it might. Wendy, does that coincide with what you think?
Well, I guess what I have heard is from the state board side is there has been a lot of pushback and concern that this could become a regular thing rather than just an emergency option. And I think that you're right on track. I mean, we have to look down the road as to and be ready for that, not be behind the 8 ball. If every other profession is testing remotely on a regular basis, I think that has to be something you think about. I'm not sure the profession is on board entirely from the regulatory side for sure. But, we may get there at some point. So I think they're taking the right steps in order to at least be able to have something like this for an emergency type situation. But then, of course, keeping in mind that, maybe this is the way of the future and the direction we want to move in.
Well said. No, I think that is where we are.
Well, thank you for that clarification. I just was curious if what the committee was thinking, but y'all are doing a great job, and we appreciate everything you're doing, because I know that really is taking a lot of time, and we appreciate your help and all that you've committed to be on that committee and the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Larry, any report out from your committee activity here?
Well, I rolled off of the audit committee and moved on to the Uniform Accountancy Act committee.
Right.
The UAA had a really big year in 2020, released a lot of stuff. And then in 21, all we've done so far is we had a planning meeting, and then they said that we would meet as needed during the year. So they haven't told us that we were needed so far, so nothing's been going on.
Okay.
So I think I know that Judy's on the audit committee, so she would have to report to us on that maybe at the next meeting.
Okay.
That's all I have. That's all I have,
Thank you.
other than the fact that we're getting ready. We're having some really strong winds. So if you see me duck under my computer here, that it's not that I passed out or anything. I'm hiding. So
We'll say a prayer for you here, Larry.
yeah.
Greg, are you on the ethics committee, Nasba
Yeah.
ethics committee? And do you have any items to report out that you'd like to chat with?
I will mention a couple items. The committee's been extremely busy over the last 3 months or so. And both of the items that I will mention have their genesis with the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, IESBA, if we need that for the minutes. But the first item is NOCLAR, NOCLAR. That's an acronym for non-compliance with laws and regulations. And I think in 2017, the Auditing Standards Board issued a draft interpretation or a draft exposure related to non-compliance with laws and regulations. And then the AICPA's Professional Ethics Committee, PEAK, got involved and issued some interpretations. And I think the AICPA received lots of letters of comments, and so there have been substantial changes made to those proposed standards. And the ASB's objective was to increase the transparency and sharing of information between predecessor and successor auditors as part of the successor auditor's client acceptance process. And under the current guidelines, the successor auditor is required to ask the predecessor auditor about matters involving NOCLAR, again, non-compliance with laws and regulations. And absent unusual circumstances, the predecessor would be required to respond to the successor's inquiries. Dan Dustin, I believe Wendy Dustin is Dan's last name, correct? Dan, on behalf of the committee, prepared a response to the AICPA to PEAK, Professional Ethics Committee. And then, Todd, you kind of mentioned something about this yesterday, but I think there are 21 members of the committee and then NASPA staff. So probably 25 people were in the kitchen writing and rewriting our comments for the letter of comments. But I think we finally got that done, and the letter of comments has been finalized, and it's dated in May. And so I'm not sure if it's actually been sent to the AICPA at this point. Wendy, you may know, but it's completed by the professor or by the ethics committee of NASPA, and we could get you a copy of that if you so desire. Also, I wanted to mention to you that if you just Google NOCLAR, NOCLAR, you will find an article in the Journal of Accountancy in March 2021 that I think is very helpful and gives some of the background and summarizes where we stand with respect to NOCLAR. So that's one of the matters that the Ethics Committee has been working on the last few months. And then the other one, again, the genesis of this is the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, relates to public interest entities, PIE. And note the distinction, that's public interest entities, not publicly traded companies. But the International Standards Board wants to enhance auditor independence with respect to public interest entities. And the exposure draft was issued by IESBA in January of 2021, and they want the standards to be implemented in December of 2021, so a fairly short time frame. And I'm going to read to you, there are 5 primary categories that have been defined as PIE, public interest entities. And maybe before I do that, I should give you just a little bit of background what they're really driving at, and that is entities, banks, for example. Andy and I have talked about this some, that the public is very interested in because the public makes deposits in banks. The public uses insurance companies. So though those entities are not publicly traded, they are public interest entities, PIE. And those 5 categories that have been identified by IESBA are: number 1, a publicly traded entity; number 2, an entity one of whose main functions is to take deposits from the public, so a bank; number 3, an entity one of whose main functions is to provide insurance to the public; number 4, an entity whose function is to provide post-employment benefits; and number 5, an entity whose function is to act as a collective investment vehicle in which issues redeemable financial instruments to the public. So those are the categories that the International Ethics Board has identified, and those are enumerated in the exposure draft. And the Ethics Committee of NASBA has discussed this at length, but we have not drafted any letter of comments, nor have I seen anything from the AICPA specifically on this. So I'm not sure if the AICPA has done anything formal at this point with respect to PIE. So that's the activity of the committee.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. And I'm hoping that you and Andy and Larry and Todd rather stay safe with the weather that's rolling your way. At least, Todd, I can see out your back window there, so I'm not seeing a funnel cloud yet. I hope
you'll give me a heads up if you see one coming.
Oh, I will. I definitely will do that. Just appreciate everybody who's serving on committees, and would encourage those who would like to going forward to do so. It's a great way to contribute to the profession, and just appreciate the activity amongst so many members of our board, including Judy, who's not able to be with us today. The next item on the agenda is the legislative update. And Wendy, are there any really new activities here to report on there of significance?
You know, it's legislative season, but fortunately our board has not been caught up in anything too concerning. So, and the last I heard from Maria, we didn't have anything. Is that still the way it is, Maria?
That's correct. There are no relevant updates right now.
Something that I will bring up that I think the department has spearheaded is something called the Modernization Act, which has several items not related to our board in there. But the one thing that is somewhat related is the ability for us to have more access to our reserve funds in certain circumstances. So there'll be more information on that if that bill passes. I think they have had some luck with it, so I think they expect it to make it through. But basically what that would be, you know, if we need to order computers for the staff, you know, technology type one-time purchases rather than maintenance type things, but one-time IT type issues, we may be able to access our reserve funds to purchase those items. And so more to come on that, but that's exciting because we've had difficulty accessing or using those reserve funds in the past. So once that is finalized, hopefully by July, I can let you know if there's anything in that area.
Thank you, Wendy. One other item before we get to old or new business, and that is, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the meeting that in addition to the rulemaking hearing element for public participation, we would also offer up an opportunity for anyone who's participating in the WebEx meeting today from the public to participate if they would care to make any comments. Please either use the chat function so that the moderator can bring you in, or also Kara or Jim, if either of you have any comments during this time period, you're welcome to chime in. I am not seeing or hearing anything in chat, so we'll go on to old or new business. Are there any items with respect to either old or new business that members would like to bring forward? I do have some comments with respect to the conclusion of Stephen's term, which we will address here in just a minute or two. But are there any other items with respect to old or new business?
I've got one item, Mr. Chairman. This
Yes.
is Stephen.
Yes, sir.
I've been asked about this a few times. I think Trey Watkins actually brought this up several meetings ago, but has there been any more thoughts or consideration about offering CPE credit for participation in our viewing our committee meetings?
Yes, you're right. Trey has brought that up, and Wendy and I have had a few conversations really since Trey began to bring that up about the technological opportunities or constraints, as the case may be, about our ability to do that and validate that someone has participated in a meeting in a way that would be satisfactory enough to earn the CPE credit. And Wendy, I'll just turn it over to you for any follow-up.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, Stephen, we have talked about this a little bit. I think it's going to be a bit of a slow process if we can get there. The feeling is that we would need to be on Teams in order to facilitate that. And we are looking to move to that, but it isn't something that we've been able to finalize yet. And so I would say the status at this point is it's on hold until we can get the Teams platform working for a public meeting. And then we can, Kevin and I can look at that and see if it makes sense at that point to offer that option.
Okay. Are we giving CPE credit now for participation in the board meetings?
Board members do.
But not the public?
Well, if they were, you know,
person?
to attend, if they were to attend in person, yes.
Okay.
We have a way to facilitate with a few number of people in person. We don't have the ability to facilitate if 100 people join us right now online, I guess is what I'm trying to, we have to be prepared for 1 or 100 to join us.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up. I think it would be a good offering to our membership, but just I'll be paying attention to see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Stephen. One other item, and this kind of followed up from some comments that we had in the executive committee meeting yesterday, that we talked about how so much of our budget with respect to salaries and benefits and so forth is really not something that the board itself has control over, and that is true. However, one of the other items that I've been working with Wendy on and also with the commission leadership on is that heretofore, at least recently during my tenure on the board, we also have not really had any chance to provide any formal input with respect to evaluative comments on, for example, Wendy's performance as executive director. And so we're working through a number of HR and departmental restraints and issues with respect to that, and trying to at least expand opportunities for appropriate board member input to the department leadership with respect to that. And we don't have anything finalized yet, but more to come on that in our July meeting. I just want you all to know that we are working through the issues and HR constraints that surround you know, the structure that we need to operate under and that the commission needs to operate under. And so more to come on that. finally, one thing that I wanted to do, Stephen, with respect to this meeting, we do not know when the governor will appoint a successor to Stephen. But if it happens prior to our July meeting, this might be Stephen's last formal meeting with us as a sitting board member. If it happens subsequent to our July meeting, we'll get a chance to hopefully see Stephen in person to thank him and congratulate him. But Stephen is finishing up basically 3 terms of service on the board. And not only does that represent personal service on Stephen's part, it also represents a sacrifice on his firm's part, because he could be doing other things, relative to his firm's business on the 2 days every quarter for 9 years that he's been serving here with respect to our board. And so I just wanted to offer up thanks, Stephen, for that commitment and that sacrifice. If we were in person, we actually have something to physically hand to you. And Wendy is showing that up now. We will get that to you either in person at our July meeting or in another way here. But we wanted to thank you. And at this time, we just offer any other board members who would like to make a comment. And then Stephen will give the floor over to you as well.
Stephen, this is Gay. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve with you, and I've learned a lot from your perspective, and I've appreciated all of your contributions to all of our meetings, and I thank you and I wish you well.
Hey, Stephen, this is Andy Bonner. I just want to say what a pleasure it's been to serve with you, and thank you for all that you've done for the board. And it really appreciate your leadership and everything that you've done on the board. And just hope everything goes good, and appreciate again everything that you've done for us.
Stephen, this is Janet Booker Davis. I would like to echo what Gay and Andy have said as well. You've always had very insightful comments, and they've been much appreciated and instructive. So we'll miss you, and good fortune to you in the future.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, Stephen, this is Larry. I came on the board in 2015, I guess, and you were on the board at that time, I guess, after serving your second or third year at that point. But you were always very helpful to me as a new guy on the block, helping me. When you first come on the board, you kind of think, well, am I supposed to talk or not? And you don't know if it's okay to speak your mind or not. And as we all know, Stephen was always willing to speak his mind. So he taught me that early on. And so I learned that it was okay to say what you thought. And Stephen, I appreciate you being a role model in that case. And so you've always shown a definite dedication to serving the public by being a member of this board. And so you were very helpful to me and have been since. And I appreciate all your help. And good luck in the future.
Thank you, Larry.
Stephen, this is Pam. I just want to say that I have really grown to admire your ability to dig out issues that are just vital to our discussion. So often you brought out something that maybe we hadn't seen, and that formed the basis for our discussion. And I admire the fact that you are perfectly willing to stand up for what you believe, regardless of what other people may believe. And I know that must serve your firm well, your professional career well, and it's certainly been a very important factor for this committee. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Pam.
Hey, Stephen, it's Greg. Also, I want to thank you for your service on the board. As Kevin mentioned, it's taxing, so to speak, on both of you and your firm. And I think we all know that we do have the quarterly meetings, but there's a lot of preparatory work that has to be done if you want to participate with knowledge in these meetings. And so that does take a lot of time for both you and time away from your firm. So thank you for your commitment for the past 9 years.
Appreciate that.
Steve, this is John. While a newbie on the board, I appreciate your service and look forward to finally meeting you one day. As a fellow West Tennessean, thank you for your 9 years serving our Grand Division, and my best to you and your firm in the future.
Thanks.
Stephen, this is Wendy. This is your plaque. I will either hand deliver sometime on my way to West Tennessee, or we'll get it shipped in the mail to you. But I certainly appreciate working with you for the past almost 6 years that I've been here. And so I think you've been on the board what feels like the entire time that I've been sitting on on the board meetings. So I appreciate your dedication. You reach out regularly, make sure you have good understanding of issues. And so I just will miss having you around. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Hey, it's Todd. Thanks for your service. I won't reiterate everybody else's comments, but it's sure has been a pleasure getting to know you.
Appreciate it. You can reiterate all you want to, but just, feels good.
Well, we're glad. And Stephen, you have the floor if you'd like to make any comments.
I'll just say it's been a long, and I say rewarding 9 years. I remember 9 years ago when I started my first meeting, I think I was scared to death. I didn't know what to expect. And I called one of my partners, Al Cresswell, who served on the board, and he said, just listen and interpret and do what you think is right. And of course I thought, wow, this is, big deal. I remember going to Bill Bloffus's house and meeting all these people that, were kind of legends in the CPA world, I guess, as I was coming up through the ranks. And I don't know, it's just been a really cool thing to see. You in a firm, you get frustrated with all the quality control documents and all the documentation and all the training and all the stuff you have to do. But after you see it firsthand, the firms that struggle with that, it makes you really appreciative of what you have. I tried to do what's always the best interest of our members, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. I know we've been through a lot of different things, through changes of leadership and a lot of changes in rules and how we do stuff. But I think that at the end of the day, we have a great board of accountancy, and I think that our industry is safe. And I appreciate all the people that I've served with that have rolled off, and also the ones that I've met that are finishing out their terms or getting started in John's case. So best of luck to you. If I can ever be of assistance to you, I'm here. I'll be glad to give you my opinion. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you, Stephen, and particularly thanks for your service. I just remember the first time we met, Pam Church and I were, I think, in an orientation session with the commission staff right before our first formal meeting, and you were kind enough to walk into where we were meeting to introduce yourself and to say hello, and to kind of let us know that even new board members had a role. So appreciate that very much, and just appreciate all the comments, and most especially the service for everybody. Whenever I get a chance to make a presentation, particularly to a group of CPAs, it's just really a blessing to help inform them of the I won't say sacrifices, but the contributions that the professionals, whether they be CPAs or attorneys or member of the public, that are making to contribute to our board and to provide so many different and unique perspectives. It really helps us govern the profession in a way, hopefully, that is contribute to our members and to the profession and the public that we serve. And so, Stephen, thank you for your efforts, and also to all of my colleagues, thank you for yours. I am not showing that we have any other items to cover, so I think we are ready to adjourn. And with that, we will look forward, hopefully, fingers crossed, to be able to meet safely in July. So everybody just take care. And those of you on the east side of the state, duck and cover and pray that you've got no damage coming through here. Take care, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.